Now, when you do the green screen, like, is your framing different, or like how does that work? Yeah, for you.
Yeah. So I actually changed the position of my camera here to get a little closer because if I use Discord, it's a little further away to get more, and then I just kind of pan over to the other side. So this entire white wall is cut out, and then I just have the screen behind me.
Yeah.
The problem is I want to wrap it around to the corner. I'm actually gonna probably do it this weekend. Because I want to pull it farther back because I've noticed some videos are getting a lot of cutoff when I go off to the side, and I want to try to eliminate that by pulling the camera back for a wider shot. And I need to get this wall gone before I can do that.
This is going to be a really
strapped to the back of my chair.
Oh, you say you have a green screen strapped to the back of your chair?
Yeah, it's a big. I don't know. It's probably a couple feet by a couple feet, but it's a big circle, and it literally straps to the back of your chair. The only problem is if you don't have a zoom feature either on a camera or on the software you're using, like for Discord, I have no way to zoom in or zoom out my camera, but on OBS I do. So on OBS it would work. I would just zoom in so everything's behind the green screen. But with the way it is right now, I would have like the top corners and the bottom corners probably would just show like my bed and my wall.
So yeah, we tried that once.
Does it automatically key it out for you on like streaming programs, or do you have to do the keying?
No, the default it defaults at chroma green.
Yeah.
So anything green, it will default. You can make it white, you can make it black, you can make it any color you want.
You can also adjust the sensitivity and smoothness.
Right.
So and it's not auto. Like I mean, it's auto in terms that the functions built into like Streamlabs, but you have to turn it on. Like you have to add a chroma key filter to your video incoming. And once you do that, you can kind of toy with your smoothness. So I have issues sometimes with like say this gray and like the colors on my shirts washing out. So I have to constantly adjust my saturation and my hues depending on what the lighting's like in the room. And you can adjust those things like smoothness and your crispness and like the sameness of the colors as it starts fading out. Keo's on autofocus, I can tell. It's doing it in and out.
Yeah, mine is too. I mean, they're all webcams, so they're just all auto-focusing, but that's okay because then we stay in focus. Because I've done very tiny amounts of green screen like 5 years ago. So that's the one thing I don't have a fucking clue how to do in video editing.
Awesome one for like it's like $130, I think, but it works like a dome. So you put your chair on it, and it comes up in a dome behind you, and it's wide and big, and it's great. It's just like $130 or $150.
But the thing is, like honestly, like you can get this right here is like $35, and it covers like 10 feet of my wall.
Yeah.
So like you don't have to pay a lot of money to get the thing. It's just to get it set up. I mean, I was convenient. I put myself on a wall here. But if you're trying to set up like a more enclosed space, you have to get your rigging up, which is where your price goes up. But like as far as program wise, the one I use, Streamlabs, which is what I think Jeff uses still too, unless you're using just flat out OBS.
I just use flat out OBS usually.
Yeah. It automatically does it when I record because I record in there just to make it easier because I can adjust so much. I have a lot more controls that I'm used to.
Right.
But when I do my post, when I do my editing, I use HitFilm, and HitFilm I can actually key stuff out in post production too. So I just have to buy the chroma key add-on, and that gets me the whole like green screen, all that other shit that they get to toy with. But I just haven't done it yet.
Well, since this is a podcast, how about we do like some semi-professional podcasting type shit here? And please, gentlemen, if you could introduce yourselves. Ray, if you could go first.
What would you like to know?
Who the hell you are, and tell me about your channel and all the stuff that you're doing. It's self-promotion. Where can people see you? Why do people care?
So I am Ray Jenkins. I go by the name Qualthis on both YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. I have been doing a lot of gaming for a very long time, about 20 some odd years now. I really got a lot more into the idea of crafting story and actually, building games and campaigns the more and more I got into playing. Because for me, I actually like running more than I enjoy playing, and I enjoy talking about game. And once I went back to school and got my master's degree, I was a lot more used to public speaking. I was a lot more used to getting out and talking in front of audiences. and just really kind of relaying facts. And I kind of put two and two together with my love of gaming, my hobbies, and my confidence and my, lack of any issue with speaking to crowds, and just kind of married those two together and decided to try this new channel. So the channel I'm running right now is called Storyteller Qualthis on YouTube. What we do there is we started in this first season to talk about beginning game masters, beginning dungeon masters coming into running a tabletop game. What type of things are good to look at? Like what kind of pitfalls? What are some tips and tricks that we've learned or I've learned over like multiple failures? What works best for me, explaining like story structure, story arcs, and encounter design, and how to handle like problems that come across the table. Because as a first-time storyteller or a dungeon master, you're not often experienced with handling, personality dynamics around a table, or writing a story. What happens if my main character can't make it for like 3 sessions? What do I do? So those are the types of things we talk about. Season 2, we're going to talk a little more about long-term campaign planning and more like nitty-gritty, like nuts and bolts of running a game, and the more advanced topics outside of things like just your 3-act story structure or hero's journey.
Right. And Jeff, you've been streaming for quite a while, right?
Yeah, I started streaming several years back. Did a lot more streaming several years back than I do now, but due to life changes and whatnot, I can actually start getting back to streaming. My problem is a couple of months ago, I actually burnt out my video card. So it sucks really bad. And it was 2 days out of warranty, so they wouldn't replace it for me. Luckily, I had a buddy who sent me one that can get me by for now. So I can't stream heavy, intensive games like GTA 5 or anything like that. But your basic normal, I could probably run Dead by Daylight okay, and a few of the other ones. So I might start doing that again. And I stream a lot before I stopped streaming with Ray here, as well as a couple of other of our friends, because I can beam it from my Xbox. So we did a lot of Xbox plays.
Yeah. That's basically all the streaming I've ever done because, anyways, for reasons, I'm not really into like the video game streaming because it's very hard for me to play a game and be entertaining while playing it. So I generally don't do that.
That was definitely when I started playing games while I was on my Twitch channel. Making entertaining commentary while you're playing is rough. Really rough. Yeah. It's not easy, and hats off to content creators that can do it and actually play through a game, have a good time, and still be entertained to their chat, because it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, really especially for me with video games. When I sit down to play a video game and I like throw the stream on, I forget that it's there because I'm not interacting personally with people. You guys did a stream the other day on your Twitch, Ray. Where you guys were interacting with people in the stream. And
Mm-hmm.
I forget to do that shit. So I think having two people go back and forth and have a conversation, I think would be easier for me to try to maintain that level of entertainment quality than just doing it myself playing Xbox. Basically, it would just be like you watching my face not move and then occasionally me yelling fuck.
It's much easier when you're set up for it. So you have your TV that you play on. As long as you have your phone, your tablet, another monitor, something set up that has your channel, so you can see what you're doing and your chat, so you can interact with them. It makes it much easier than trying to have everything up on your TV screen.
Yeah, and stuff like Streamlabs or just general OBS. When you start streaming, your chat pops up alongside your studio view. So while you have all your controls and you can monitor your stream, you can also see your chat while it's going. So that makes it easier for me. I have my second monitor right by my primary. So, the two monitor setup. But you got to constantly be looking, just double check. Yeah. Did anybody say something? Is there a question that we need to answer? Like the stream you stopped in on was our Q&A when we were just kind of talking about gaming, Yeah. And we were taking audience questions. And I found myself occasionally forgetting to look over, but then I just made it my main screen, so I had no choice. But while I was looking at Jeff while he was talking, I was seeing the chat as well, so that made it a lot easier.
Yeah,
that's how I had mine set up as well. So I saw Ray and myself in front of me, literally right next to it on the same screen. I popped chat out and just had chat there, so I was able to see.
Yeah, I think it's like Twitch is something I was really against for a long time. But I'm starting to come around to see like the value in that, because essentially it's just like my issue's always been the live part of it. You know, like this is being recorded. This is not live, and I have the freedom to kind of edit it and clear out shit that's, you know, not interesting. Not that I do that a lot, but like I have that freedom. And I was always kind of like, well, Twitch is just like watching people play video games, and who wants to do that? Well, apparently a bunch of people do, but also in like the avenue of podcasting and, you know, the content creation, you get, especially with like the setups that you guys have and like being able to add backgrounds and kind of add things in live, you know, it's, for me, it's like very intimidating. It's like, I don't know how to do this. You know, it's crazy. So I guess I was just curious, like for you guys, you know, jumping into content creation, how have you been able to deal with those things, or have you not even had to think about it?
Well, as
Jeff, you want to hit that first?
As far as my stuff, because it's less intensive than Ray's when he gets to it, but it's a slow build, unfortunately, because it all costs money for the most part. Yeah. So you start by, you know, getting a good camera, then a good microphone, or actually I would switch that. I would get a good microphone before I got a good camera.
Yeah, audio is a bit more important.
Right. Sound quality is kind of a big thing. And from there, you kind of look into gaining other stuff. Same thing with, I know that you did with podcasting. It's that slow build.
Yeah. That's definitely what I did with podcasting.
Yeah. But a lot of it just comes down to more so being entertaining and being a friendly face for people, you know, something people get used to, as opposed to production value. You can just see like before this, you could see my bed, my window, all the stuff in like behind me in my room. But as long as people are coming where I'm having an open conversation with people and being interactive, that's what draws people. People don't give a shit what's behind you, really. This is just added production.
Yeah.
Well, I somewhat disagree there. I gotta say that when I first started doing like streaming, when I kicked off my content creation stuff, I was all just streaming video games, right? You know, I was playing through Aliens horror games, right? So Alien, A Clone of Marines, horror action, then Alien Isolation, Dead by Daylight, stuff like that. That I just had a lot of fun with, and that I love the IP, so I could talk about it, you know, and actually have pertinent things to say while I'm playing the game. Right. Plus, I'm also pseudo experienced with video game design as well, so finding errors and small issues, you bring this type of stuff up, and it's kind of fun to just talk about it. So that part was easy. The talking part was easy. Getting everything else is what gets a little bit daunting. And virtually everything I use, I paid nothing for. Streamlabs is a free program. I just had to spend the time to learn how to use it, how to set up alerts, how to set up sounds that I can trigger with hotkeys. I had to, you know, I spent like $30-40 on this to get that set up. My camera was the most expensive thing so far. That was like $240, $250 for this camera. And then my mic that I just ordered is 156 as a USB condenser. So until I get into like a mixer and like a XLR mic, you know, that's kind of going to be my hold off until I get to that point.
Yeah.
So for me, the tech side of things is actually much more daunting. Getting some of the add-ons and the what we call overlays for your screen, like I made for the cast that you saw, that I did all myself using free software. I used GIMP, you know, so I was just kind of really plug and playing it and getting stuff done. It just takes time, you know, learning how to get that sorted out and how to get stuff to where you want it to be for your channel and trying to build up the look from there. That's just all the stuff that takes time. Yeah. Like, you know, watching your YouTube, you know, channel and watching your cast, like your production value is just freaking amazing. You know, I love the stuff you're able to do with your software and some of the assets you have. Like, that's freaking awesome. Here I am tooling around with the free video editing program, trying to like think of something I can do to either cut this and make it sound cooler, getting some free background music that I can throw in there as well. So it's definitely an uphill journey, and it was daunting at first, but I think every little bit that you learn makes me a little, at least for me, makes me a little more confident that the next hurdle is not going to be as rough.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth, because you know, if you go back and you look at like I've been podcasting for a real long time, and I've been podcasting about 5 years now. And that entire time I've used Adobe Audition, and, Adobe Audition I pay for, and, I've been paying for it for the entire time I've been podcasting. And so, I already had a program, and I had a bit of an advantage because I was taught how to use that program. I went to school and I was taught how to use that program. But when I started this, I was like, I just want to record audio and put it on the internet. I don't know how to make a website. I basically still don't, but I have one because I have Squarespace. So, I learned that, but I didn't know how to use Photoshop. I'd never used Photoshop. I was like, what do I need to know that for? Well, start a podcast and figure it out. You'll find out. And then,
almost everything is the answer.
Right. Almost everything. Like Photoshop, I use almost as much as Audition, and I don't do, they're totally different purposes, but for the same thing. And then, video editing software, like I never edited a video before I went to broadcasting school. And what I learned on was fucking 10 years out of date. And, now I'm learning every day. I have to edit video, and it's just like, I'm just kicking myself because this stuff became popular when I was in my 30s and not in my 20s, because, now I'm like, I'm really into it. I really want to do this. And I'm like, damn, I'm almost 40. Like this shit can't be a hobby anymore,
Hey,
so,
I am 40, so I get you.
Right.
That was ironically the biggest reason I never streamed until I did is because I'm like, I'm too old. Why am I going to do this? Nobody wants to watch. This is pointless. And then my friend Jason's like, just fucking do it.
Right.
Just have fun, just do it, and we'll see what happens. So I did, and I enjoyed it. I like the idea of playing games with my friends and sharing the stupid shenanigans and stuff we get up to in a game with other people.
Yeah.
Because it's humorous, it's fun. But it took me a while. My channel was very much a variety streamer, and if you look on Twitch, variety streamers don't do very well because people come in like to watch certain content from certain creators, what they're known for, and that's what they play. So that's why you get like people like Ninja who plays Fortnite and has been for freaking years because the guy's made millions playing Fortnite. People don't want to come and watch him play like World of Warcraft. That's just not going to help his branding. So for me, that was something I really struggled with. And it wasn't until I actually revamped everything for the storytelling and the gaming stuff that the channel started getting a lot more of attention. Like now, before I would have maybe 2 or 3 people subscribe, when I was doing stuff, my friends would use like Amazon Prime or whatever, or some tips here and there. And I had like 80 some odd followers. Since we did our first 2 live streams about gaming, we did the Q&A on Thursday, and then we did a live stream tabletop session. I now have over 100 followers and like over 10 subscriptions. So I was like, okay, well, I found what works for me in my channel. And that's one of the biggest things is finding out what works for you. And for me, it's that gaming, it's a hobby. Talking about games for me is still a hobby. Yeah, I'm spending a lot more time than I would normally because I got to do all this post-production and stuff, but I still find it entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's getting really big on Twitch too is just chatting. So doing what we're doing right now, but live streaming it.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people watch that stuff. Granted, they're normally drawn to the topic to start, but once they're here, if they enjoy your personality, they're going to stay.
I discovered something weird the other day that I didn't know was a thing. IRL live streaming. Just people talking about their lives. I was like, what the? Like, are you for real? Like, we're just...
Before they have the just chatting option, It was IRL stream.
That just blew my mind. I was like, what the hell? This guy was talking about this air conditioner he has that he has a problem with, and it had like a mold icicle. I'm like, why are there 700 people in your chat like watching you talk about? Like, I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
No, I still don't get it, but I have an example. So back in about a year ago or whatever, my wife and I think we were like looking for somewhere to go and eat. Like we were looking for a restaurant. So, we went to YouTube, searched something, and I think we found a video of like somebody doing a review at a restaurant. And so we start watching this guy's video, and then, we just like, it comes up in our like recommended. And like now every time this guy puts out a video, we basically are watching this guy eat.
It's funny. My wife and I want to do like a lifestyle channel about places in Chicago that we like going to, like bars, the restaurants, the secret pubs. And like, that's the type of thing we want to do. And it's funny because once you start falling down that rabbit hole, you just keep falling down that rabbit hole. Yeah. We started watching Tasty, where they do like the comparisons between like $5 meals and $100 meals. Yeah. Just on a whim one day.
I watch every episode of that.
Yeah. And it's just, now we're like all the time out there, like, what's going on? It's not anything related to like movies or music or like gaming, which is kind of like our big thing.
Normal entertainment, right?
Yeah, it's just, hey, let's talk about some food stuff. Like binging it with Babbage. How can you not watch that guy? Like he's just so entertaining. And I think that's the power of the person behind the channel. That's that personality coming through, that entertainment that Jeff was talking about. That sometimes it doesn't matter what they are. Once you're in and you start hearing that person talk and like deliver their content and like their sense of humor, their personality, if you like it, you can keep coming back. Even if I guess they're talking about their moldy icicle from there.
Right. And because they're interacting with chat, you almost build like a relationship, like a friendship out of it. I've gone into, I don't know how many channels where the people in the chat are talking to the streamer like they're best friends and back and forth. And it's something that develops. It's like any other relationship, really.
Yeah, that's still a little weird to me, but
but that's the way.
And it's because like I'm not a real big people person. Like I never have been a real big people person, and so like I don't mind interacting with people. I do, I wouldn't like if I hated interacting with people and I didn't want people to hear what I had to say, I would just stand in the closet over here and talk to myself. So, but at the same time, like. There is that, like, I've had plenty of people who are like, oh, dude, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. Because they listen to you, they watch you, they get to know you. And, it is natural for them to go, well, I know all this stuff about your life. So I almost view you as a friend. But at the same time, like, I just want to hide. Like,
I got the same way with the org. Like when I was playing OWBN, like I have tons of gamer acquaintances. I think we're all familiar with this concept, but very few gamer friends.
Yeah.
Like, we played together. You see me play a character. You see me talk out a game. We've maybe gone to afters or hung out. And this is the same thing with stream. Like, we've talked. That's cool. We're not, to me, like, we're not friends. Like, we're acquaintances. Like, yeah, I know you. Yeah, that's really where it is. I'm friendly towards you. We're all right. It's I don't know, like getting friends off that, it seems to be kind of a long-term process to me. And I'm really not.
Yeah. So speaking of,
for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of this, you've stirred something in me, and I'm going to ask you a question, and you can feel free to either say, "No, I don't want to answer it," or have me cut it out afterwards.
But see, now you put me on the spot. Now it's you can chicken shit out, or you can answer. Is pretty much what
this is why this isn't live, because I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
But speaking of One World by Night, I know you were storytelling for the local Sabbat game.
Yeah, Jesse and I actually revitalized Sabbat as a genre in Chicago.
And you left, you guys quit.
Yep.
And then the game that I played in Indianapolis shortly thereafter left. But no one would tell me what the fuck happened. So my question is, what the fuck happened?
Well, I can't speak for the game that you played in because I don't really know their circumstance. But I'm going to try to skirt the code of conduct here without being too, to the point. Essentially, so to start from the beginning, that's really the best place to start. Jesse and I started talking about the Sabbat game, and we wanted to run one because the Midwest hasn't had a Sabbat game that was steady for a long time. Yeah. It would pop up for like a month, a year, and then just boom, crash and burn. And those deaths would be not so sudden. One game that was out here that was run by somebody who has since moved ran for 8 months before it started just dwindling and dwindling, and then just suddenly just finally died because only a handful of people were going. So with the passion for the Sabbat that I have, and Jesse's super interested in wanting to run it and wanting to tell dark stories, we put our heads together and created, our version of a Sabbat game. We had to work within the confines of the org to where we could play at, because we tried to negotiate to actually have it in Chicago, but the Chicago storyteller at the time refused to let it happen. They're like, no vampires in Chicago except for, Camarilla. And even then, like, they're trying to caveat, I won't say this person's name, but it's going to be obvious who I'm saying. This person that was at the time that was ahead of the Chicago vampire game was trying to effectively push all of their supernaturals out of Chicago to have it just be vampire. The mages were not allowed to run in Chicago. They're running in the collar counties, essentially, like, in Naperville and stuff like that. The Guru kind of got pushed out into the larger forest preserves. Now, the Guru STs will tell you, oh, we weren't pushed out. Social maneuvering as it is behind the scenes, they were subtly started to guide outside. You'd have more fun outside of the city. Why don't you go there? And that kind of happened. And so when we came to Sabbat, we knew it wasn't going to happen in Chicago, but we tried anyways. And so we got a consolation prize. You guys can use Rockford if you want to, if it's okay with this person who has it. So we got Rockford and started running. And so when the game first started, the ways that the parent games and satellite games in the org work is you have to have a game that's going to be above you, like kind of like a sponsor for the org, right?
Okay.
You run your own game, but ultimately the storyteller of your parent game is the ultimate arbiter of what you can and can't do. They handle all your disciplinary issues. They handle all of your permissions for council members and shit like that.
Okay.
So we were put under the Chicago Dark Requiem, cam game. And the staff told us that they were supportive. Now, we had our issues with the staff in the past for various personal reasons. And I was a little concerned about this, but they gave us every indication that we were golden, we were good to go. Our first game launched, we had like 20 players, which was phenomenal for Sabbat game. That was like equal to what Chicago Dark Requiem was having at that time. So as Sabbat game coming in, we're already doing gangbusters. Right. As the game got more popular and started doing more numbers, we're averaging like 30 people a game. We got people traveling from Champaign coming up, Indy coming over, Milwaukee is coming down regularly. And we're doing pretty good. We have a good local player base. Then some stuff happened behind the scenes with us and the staff of Chicago Dark Requiem. Essentially, it was gamer drama. And it was basically, I have a lot of contempt for people who their paper sheet is more important than anything else.
Right.
Like I have contempt for that because it's a piece of paper, it's a piece of paper. Piece of paper, piece of paper, piece of paper.
Right.
Come on, get over it, drop the e-peen, essentially, and just be a cool person. Like, don't be a dick just because you have like a massive character,
Right.
Everybody started somewhere. Everybody started learning the game somehow. Don't just start railroading, new players because you have huge amounts of it. I hate that. And some people in the staff of Chicago, who shall remain nameless, had a habit of doing that all the time. They would go to games with these like 1,200 point characters and just start twisting genre. And when you're a new player coming in, but the genre, you're like, none of this makes sense. Like, what's going on? They're like, well, it does because I say it does. And that's just how vampire works. Because we're powerful, you can't say anything, you have no power. I'm like, yeah, but that's meta. Like, let's not be
right.
Let's not be dicks out of game about stuff like that, right? But it is what it is. So that started getting a little more and more powerful. And we started venting our frustrations to people that we knew about these particular staff members. Well, that got back to them and they're like, you know what, we're going to shit can your game. You guys want to talk crap, we're going to bring it for DAs because you said bad things about us. Like, what? That we didn't agree with your calls or that we thought you were trying to be unfair? Well, yeah, you can't say that. It's against COC. So we're going to shit can your game and we're going to ban you from ours. And we're like, okay, sure. So they gave us literally like end of the month to find a new host for our game. Luckily we did. We were under the GRU game and it went from there. Now, that kind of hurdle was surpassed and we kept playing the game, and eventually these staff members would try to come to our game and have fun, and we just feel like anybody else. So they're like, wow, we can actually come in and be a jerk to us? Like, well, no, because that's not my job description. It's not just be a dick to you, it's to be a storyteller to you, right? So don't you don't fuck up. You don't be a dick to anybody. You don't have an issue. So this went on for several months. We started approaching our like 8-month time of being in the org as a game. We were starting to have issues with the larger players from Milwaukee coming down and basically saying what the CAM players did to CAM people, they were doing to our Sabbat players. Now, we had a pack of NPCs that was there to kind of guide our fledgling players along, And we had to set up this situation in Rockford where the Sabbat had just kicked off this offensive. They want to try to take over the city, but they want to see who they can convert because it's primarily an anarch city. There was a run by a baron. There were like a fledgling Camarilla presence, but nothing really of note. So let's kind of feel out and see who we can convert to our side, from the anarchs, actually make them, they're half Sabbat anyway, so let's just convert them the rest of the way. That was the idea, to have players talk to these people, do social interactions, try to bring them down, and those they couldn't mark for termination or whatever, and just go from there. Well, when these big sheets came down from out of state, they just walked in and started kicking in doors and just murdering people flat out. Like, they blew up a biker bar by hurling bikes through the window. And while dozens of mortals are fleeing and walking out, they did nothing to stop them. They just let them run all over the place. Mm-hmm. And that was fine because it got quashed masquerade-wise, but that really tipped their hand to everybody else. And so when these older Sabbat members left to go back to their home chronicles, our players left holding the bag. When Haven raids started happening, when police presence got jumped up, and then those players yelled at us as staff going, "How dare you do this to new players?" And we're like, this is what's happening because you did this. And we actually at NBCs try to tell them, you did this. Chill out because you're fucking with people who actually live here. And it was fine as long as it was in-character drama. But out of game, the players got pissed at us, like absolutely livid with us. Mm-hmm. And we're like, what's the deal here? So long story short, we kind of had to deal with that stuff. And then the problem became those players that were problematic from out of state talking to our players and having our players get up in our faces about how, you killed my character. That was completely unfair. I'm like, you were alone with the Baron and she dominated you into just telling her information about where another Sabbat pack was. And that Sabbat pack got attacked. How is that unfair? You're the one who was dumb enough to meet her in person and then got summoned back and then dominated. How is that? It was a character who literally has 50 points more than you as a starting character. What? WTF, man. And so those out of state players started really kind of putting fuel on this fire, Ray's an unfair storyteller, Jesse's an unfair storyteller, it's all a bunch of bullshit, they're just playing their power trip. And I'm like, what? We've killed 2 PCs in 8 months. How are we just crushing players? So that started really becoming an issue with drama. And then I had a huge issue because I refused to go back to Chicago Requiem because I had issues with the staff. So I transferred all my characters to Milwaukee. I had a Bali that was approved. I had a Loyalist Assamite Vizier. I had my Zamisi, who had ridiculous, pretty much every combo display in the packet that I had spent 4 or 5 years getting. And they were all transferred to Milwaukee. Well, then Chicago Milwaukee did this weird freaking amalgam staff thing. We're like, well, the Prince of Milwaukee is taking over Chicago too and making the Western Shore, right? You heard about that. Yeah. And then the stabs kind of merged as well. And I'm like, hey, I'm not really comfortable with this particular staff having access to my sheets and my approvals. I came up here and started playing here for a reason. And if they're going to be staff members now, I would kindly like to withdraw and put my character somewhere else. I was going to put them in another friend's game. And this huge drama started because the head ST of Milwaukee is a really, really close friend of both Chicago STs and was like, you're just trying to avoid consequences. What consequences? My Bali's perfectly fucking infiltrated this society as a Setite. I actually have alternate identity of 5 as a Setite. You have no idea who I am. My Loyalist Assamite, nobody touches me because whatever reason, I don't know why. So I have no consequences there. My Zamisi Sabbat never comes to this game anyways. I just play him another Sabbat game. So what? Right. What am I avoiding? Well, you're just jumping your characters around. This is 2 moves in as many years. And so this started this huge kerfluffle where we refused to. We're not gonna transfer your characters and all this other stuff. And you're just being a soil sport and blah 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 blah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm getting my ass chewed by players on a regular basis in my Sabbat game. I'm getting other staff telling me that I'm being some dick out of character because I don't want to, be, beholden to staff that I don't trust. And then I've got players coming from out of region. We had players coming from the East Coast, and every Sabbat player knows the East Coast is just a phenomenal place for, for Sabbat. So we got the East Coast players coming in, and they brought mummy gear and all kinds of crazy fetishes. And I'm like, we literally asked them, how did you get access to this potent mummy magical item or this artifact and this roof fetish? Oh, we have a cult influence. What do you mean? Well, it allows you to get a magical item. yeah, but these are very specific, very potent magical items.
Right.
And so I'm dealing with that. I'm like, you know what? As the crazy is starting to come more and more as the game started building and getting more popular, we were having just more and more insanity come into it. And every time we would say no, it was just like fighting tooth and nail for a reason, to find something to hold on to. Like we turned down somebody's magical item that was a ring that was crafted from the compressed ashes of a Zamisi lore master, and it gave a character +2 to all lores. Right. And so I go, how is this made? He goes, oh, just like it says in the card. I'm like, all it says is that it's compressed remains of a Zamisi. He's like, yep. Like, yeah. No, we're going to say no to this one. Why would you do that? Well,
because it's fucking stupid.
Right. And then people were bringing in a bunch of hedge magic, items that were created for like massive trait bonuses. Like, well, they're not going to stack you like one bonus for one thing at a time. So the 5 rings that you have, they give you +5 traits each. Don't give you +25.
No?
and then people just started getting more and more angry about that.
Right.
And
but they Diablerized the dragon for it.
Right. They ate a 4th gen while they're in slumber and they're completely themselves still. But no, it was that kind of stuff that just really started hiking up. And then the player stuff, we were getting pushed back from our people. And for me, I told Jess, I'm like, I'm just going to step down. Like I'm done. Like the game was no longer fun to run. It became a chore. It became like, who am I going to have to yell at tonight because they're screaming at me about me saying no to something they had?
Yeah.
Or who's going to come at me because they failed a chop and died that they think that chops are unfair now? Like it was just an every game thing. And so when I finally stepped down for that, I had this huge weight just lifted off my shoulders. And then I'm still dealing with this stuff up in Milwaukee and Chicago about me wanting more characters. So I finally said, you know what? Just retire them all. I'm going to retire my Bali, my Asimite, my Zanisi. I still apparently have a demon out there somewhere and some other character. Oh, a Salubriante and a Tremerian Arc, I guess. But I'm like, everything I was hosting in that game, like, just retire them. And they're like, why? You can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean I can't retire my character? Like, just toss it. Yeah, but you spent all this time doing this stuff. Again, piece of paper. Like, yeah, it was fun to play my Bali. Yeah, it was fun to play my Zamisi. I played them nationally across the boards. And yeah, it was fun to play my Asimite. I got to meet fucking, Suge Knight. That was great. But not a big deal to me. Like, just toss it. I don't have to be a 1,500 point character to feel fulfilled. So just toss it. And once I did that, I just pretty much walked because there wasn't a game I can go to without running into some of these staff members because, it's the same crowd that goes to every game in the area. So I just backed out. From what happened in India, I have no idea what happened to their game.
Oh, no, I don't know either, but I imagine it has something to do with similar situations.
Yeah, the problem is, like, to get into some org politics here, it becomes an issue of, how does the org kind of continue on, right?
Right.
Because there's so many calls for let's just reset, and it gets the reset calls get a lot of hate every time it comes up, but it's valid because what we end up having is a bunch of the old guard who still have characters from like 15, 20 years ago. They're playing the same character still, and they're just writing genre however they see fit because no one can stop them. And as much as people say Chronicle Sovereignty, yes, ST can just kill their character. No, we can't because they'll go to council, they'll get a resurrection prop, they'll win it. We know they will because they've been around for so long. They're considered a staple. So then there's also the fact that any normal storyteller can't actually requisition the things they would need to pose a challenge to that character because you're only allowed to make NPCs of certain levels of power. Anything beyond that, you need specific approval for, like hardcore approval for. You're not going to get it if you're just starting out. So effectively, it allows this 1,500 point character to come in your game and just destroy as much as he wants to and walk away scot-free, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And whenever these calls for resets come into play, it gets a lot of pushback because people go, well, we're going to lose a ton of people. We're going to lose a lot of our players that have been around for so long because they're losing their favorite characters. I'm like, if your players are that good, they should understand it's just a character. It's a piece of paper. And they'll make something else that's fun to play and start with everybody else. It
begs the question, is it more important to keep the players that you have who are, I don't want to make generalizations about people. I'm sure everybody has their own reasons for playing and having their characters for a long term, but you have these characters that are essentially doing nothing. They're not adding any new story. They're just soaking up XP to the point where they're just bloated. is it more important to keep only those people or to allow new people to come in? Because here's my experience.
Sure.
Obviously I've been playing this game for a really long time. And, I went and first game that I played, I was like, oh, this game's great. It's awesome. It's fantastic. And then at the end of the game, I was privy to a scene where there's people that are, declaring 40, 50 traits. Yep. And I'm like, what? Right.
Blood magic and fleshcraft. Well, not fleshcraft, but vicissitude.
And other things, magic things and card things,
merit stackings and all that. Yep.
Right. And so, they're bidding all of these astronomical traits. And I'm going objectively. I'm like, if I was a new player, like I would just walk away because here I am with this character that I got a nice little chunk of points to make this character or whatever. But like, there's no way I can compete with that ever. There's no way I can ever compete with that. And, in a game that is World of Darkness, I feel like that's okay. You shouldn't necessarily be able to compete, but like that would just be so daunting and so overwhelming that I wouldn't want to play. And the only reason I stayed was because I've been playing for so long. I was like, it's no big deal. I'm just going to have my fun. I'm not going to worry about what they have. But that's not the experience of most people. Most people come in with a new character and they're like, this is crazy. I can't compete with that. I don't want to play.
Right. And actually, when we did Sabbat in Chicago, when we were running the Rockford game, we very purposely made plot very inclusive to all the new players. And when there were the big players coming in, we had threats on the shelf for them. There was specifically to kind of counter them, like the BSDs that were in Rockford, etc. Everything was there in case those big characters jumped in. We can engage them and have them have fun because those big sheets, just like anybody else, we love throwing around the points, right? Hey, I've got this awesome thing I want to try it out in combat. And I ran a combat scene when they raided a bunker where the camp was situated once everything kind of hit the fan, where I literally ran the scene for some of the largest Sabbat in the area. Like it was, the Zamisi Chords PC, which is stupid House Malice crap. I mean, I love the Chuck Farmer as it is, but House Malice, like, this is from when Chuck formed House Malice. This is one of the characters that was there. And he's in my scene, and he's just like, dude, I'm sorry if I'm making this too. I'm like, no, man, let's play it out. Let's have fun. And he got to use powers that he never really gets to use because he doesn't want to crush plot for other players, right? So the big characters got to play, and then we had this awesome little theme park of horrors for all the younger players. All the newer PCs that were there, like, say, 100 points and under, had all their own stuff they could do. And when we divided it like that, that's why the game got as big as it did before we left. It was 30-plus players every game because we made sure that we catered to all the different styles of play that we had, and we could handle the different power levels. But that's rare. That doesn't really happen a lot. And a lot of times when you go to games, those larger level players that walk in, they're just writing genre as they go, and the STs are powerless to stop it because even their PCs can't match up.
Right.
One of the most infamous characters in the area in the Midwest is a Setite. And I think you might know who I'm talking about, Nate. I don't know. Issa?
I'm not sure.
Okay, Issa is this like literally 10 to 12-year-old Setite PC that has ridiculous shit. He's got all the thaumaturgy necessary to be like the I have everything in the book type character.
Right.
And all kinds of spiritual allies and all stuff. He's friends with Kimiteri and all this other crazy shit that's going down. He has mummies at his behest. It's just stupid shit. And so I actually asked the player of that character, I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Like, just out of curiosity, because you wanted to bring it to our Sabbat game. I'm like,
right.
Why? What do you have to gain? Like, what can your character bring that's actually going to enrich the game? Well, I'm doing all this stuff on a national level. Okay. What does that mean for my game? Like, What are you actually going to do? Well, I'm doing all these plots. And so finally I asked him after we had this circular conversation for like a half an hour. I'm like, why are you still playing this character, man? Well, my story's not done yet. And that's the most common thing you'll hear. Every single big PC in the org that I've talked to, like Prince Pagan and all this other crazy stuff across the place, they're all just like, well, my story's not done. Well, what will complete your story?
Right.
You have 2,000 points. You've been playing for 10 years. You pretty much run the clans that you're playing in. What will complete your story?
Right.
for the settings, are you going to try to raise set? You know that's not going to happen. So why don't you retire the character to be a mentor in that back who's trying to do that? They can move and shake on different levels that you can't do as a person because you can't go to all these games.
Yeah.
So why don't you do that? And they never will.
Yeah, I not to be like, well, I'm cool, but when I first started playing the Assamite Anti-Tribute, I was like, well, I'm a Diablerist Assamite, addicted to blood. This is my goal. I want to Diablerize, blah, 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 blah. And so I read in the packet that like you couldn't go below 8th generation. If you did, you have to retire the character. And I was like, wow, that's the most arbitrary nonsense ever. So I told my storytellers when I started playing the game, I was like, my goal is to Diablerize someone 7th generation. And they're like, that means you'll have to retire your character, right? And I'm like, yeah, so what? That I want to lower that's my goal. If I have to give up my character, tough shit. That's what happens.
Tell you a fun story. I was in a scene where I saw this super powerful Assamite, a big mover and shaker in the Midwest, get access to a 4th generation body. Guess what they didn't do?
They didn't Diablerize it because they didn't want to give up the character.
And it was their most hated enemy. Like canon-wise, is a hated Assamite character. Like actual White Wolf canon-wise. And in the game, it was very much a hated Assamite character. And they had access to him. Full, unrestricted access. Did not eat him. And I purely knew that it was just because they didn't want to have to NPC out.
Right, because they knew that there was going to be an out-of-game ramification for their in-game behavior.
And I don't have my special stick anymore.
We've been, as gaming as long as we have, especially in the LARP circuit, even if local games were to run that long and people were to get that powerful, it'd be a lot of those people would say the same exact thing. Well, my story's not done. You got 1,000 points. What do you need your story to be? You want to fight Michael the Archangel? Are you Cappadocius? Like, what's going on right now?
It's the easiest excuse for somebody who's like, I don't want to give up my paper peen. Like that's literally what it is.
Yeah, there's
I think we all fell into that category at one point, but I don't think any of us ever had a character that got that fucking big where it was like, I'm just gonna go and romper stomp the whole city.
We do. Yes, Jeff.
I never had a character of that power level.
Called Lombardians.
I think when I first started going to Lombard, we were called Napier villains, and I was like, I'm not from Naperville, and then they were just like, oh, you're just an asshole. So
when we went to Naperville, Jeff and I got called Lombardians. So
and it wasn't even us. The whole city attacked us, and all me and Ray did was pop Shepherd's Watch. And everybody passed the fuck out.
Some son of a bitch there blew for between the ticks. Mm-hmm. We're like, and we're the problem.
Right. Seems legit, yeah.
What the fuck?
Get them both, and we're like, oh, Third Eye, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Everybody passed out, and we didn't go back to that game. We were like, we don't know why the fuck we got attacked. There was no reason. None of them knew we were Salubri to begin with. We were all
you have to remember those days, Jeff. You were new, and you were like not part of the in crowd that was there at the game. So if you were new, you got attacked immediately. Is it really?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm so out of the loop.
Well, I mean, org-wise, when you go back to the game, you're a new player. Unless you have established ties with other players there, right? You're still the fresh meat. I mean, you're not walking back to 2 XP so much anymore, but it's like, we're just going to dunk on you until you've earned your place at the table.
I didn't get that.
And 2 XP.
The reason why I didn't get that when I've gone to any of them is because I'm somewhat known outside of the LARP. That was it. That was honestly it. Like, when I went to the game in Indianapolis, the storyteller was like, oh my God, you're coming to my game? And I was like, I'm just a LARPer like you. Like, I just happen to have a podcast. So it was like, not to like toot my own horn, but I didn't get that. And it was only because it was like people knew who I was.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But not in Chicago. I'm not going to tempt that fate here.
So funny enough, one of my first Sabbat games when I started playing my Zemisi, Jonathan, like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, we went up to Milwaukee and we played at Neverwhere or Kenosha and played Neverwhere before we got shut down. And I walked in and I'm like, I don't know anybody here. It was me and Quigley and Paul Reynolds. And I'm like playing literally like 753 brand new out of the box, Zemisi. And I'm like, so we're technically from Chicago, but we don't really have a way to play in Chicago. So we went to Kenosha. And we go up there, and I'm watching all these people play, and that's when those, like, even having not played with these particular players, I think any one of us will get this, or who played for a long time, you get those LARP instincts, they just kick in. You're like, all right, so now I got to talk the game. So everybody thinks, like, where the fuck's this guy from? Like, I don't know this character. Do you know this? And then just paused everything for a while, and it was like, is the NPC? Like, what is this character? So I walked in, and I called the entire diocese a bunch of fucking cowards for not laying siege to Chicago because of what? Some mystical wall that's keeping you out. Oh, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what it was. It's exactly what it was from our storytellers in like the satellite Chicago game at the time.
I forgot
mystical
about that.
force field that kept Sabat out of Chicago.
And so come on now.
My storyteller sat down. He's like, "Ray, don't ever fucking do that again." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Because I had like 30 people call me and email me about coming to bring their characters to Chicago, and they can't come to Chicago." I'm like, well, "Why not?" Well, there's a mystical barrier. I'm like, I was pulling that out of my ass. Like, no, there's really a mystical barrier that prevents Sabat from coming to Chicago because the Chicago Dark Requiem staff decided that we need to stop Sabat PCs from trying to sign in. So we'll just say that they're not allowed to come in. There's like a barrier that detects Devaldery, and they're just kept out.
That's dumbest shit ever.
Yeah. But then you run into Sabat PCs, or not PCs, Sabat NPCs in all the werewolf games as like throwaway cannon fire. So it's like, all right, so you just don't want Sabat PCs. Just say that.
Yeah, that's dumb. That's the dumbest shit.
Especially in an org that encompasses like all the genres of the world of darkness. But we don't want you to come here.
Well, so we found out though, because we talked about this. I'm like, when we first started pitching Sabat to the Chicago staff, we're like, well, it would be actually kind of fun to do a crusade. In Chicago, let's do it. Well, the KNPC's old smashers like, yeah, sure, but if people want to try that, that's on them. If they want to take their 753 Sabat and go beat on Critias's door, hey man, you got a free meal for the night. No, we don't want to do it. Okay, so then we had a real conversation about them later on, and we're like, so what's the real reason why you wouldn't let us bring Sabat and our PCs from our game go to Chicago? And it came down that the real reason was that once they allowed our PCs in, we could have people transfer from other games to our game and then like use Rockford as a staging ground, which honestly would make sense tactically. Use Rockford as a staging ground to go into Chicago, and then we have all these ancient Sabat PCs literally come out of the woodwork. Several of which I had met as a storyteller and as a player, characters like 15 years old that were Sabat that were just still around and just collecting at speed, and they're just stupid big. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, all those PCs will come to our Camarilla game in Chicago and just take over the city. I'm like, and?
Right.
That's how you guys play with Sabat cities. Right. You send people to Sabat games, infiltrating, you have them kill all the PCs. So how's it different? Well, we can never let Chicago become Sabat. Why not? It was the first OWM Chicago vampire game. And we're just never going to let it happen. Yeah, okay.
Because it's the gem of the org, basically.
Yeah, but doesn't that just completely slap in the face the idea that it is a player-driven plotted game?
Oh, that's all. Yeah. Let's be real here. It's not. It's player-driven within each domain that as allowed by the storytellers. When you start crossing, you may get some stuff you can do, and you can start driving plot nationally on that type of scale. I mean, I've played that game with my Sabat especially, but what it comes down to is any major shakes will never ever happen. You're never going to flip a Camarilla game to a Sabat game unless all the players and all the staff agree to it as just kind of like an outside game thing. Hey guys, we're taking Sabat. Let's do a fun crusade. Otherwise, it's not really going to happen. Yeah, upsets happen at conventions, like major PCs get killed and all this other crazy stuff, but there's so many constraints on it because there have to be, because there's so many power gamers that have such old characters now. I think Professor Power Gamer would have a good talk with some of these guys. Those players would come in and start just wrecking face if they're allowed to, and that's why they put these constraints in place, which is why I'm like, fuck it, just reset the whole damn thing.
Right. Yeah, just every couple of years. I mean, I don't know. That's what makes sense to me, because and also let me point this out too. The other thing that shocked the shit out of me when I started playing in One World by Night was how much XP I earned. I was like, why do I need 8 XP a month? What do you think is going to happen when you give out 8 XP a month? Like, that's insane. Stop giving out 8 XP a month.
So it's the arms race argument, right? Mm-hmm. And I got this as a storyteller because we wouldn't allow ghouls to have above intermediate disciplines in our game. Like, okay, you have a retainer, that's fine. They can only ever have up to intermediate disciplines. They're not letting you get advanced. Like, you're not going to have a ghoul at Passants. Just not going to happen. And we had players come and argue with us, like, hey, I know you're not going to let it happen in your game, but would you put it on my sheet anyway? So when I go to other games that do allow it, I have it. And I'm like, what? And then you start realizing that as other players are coming into your game, as other people start coming into your game, they're getting max XP, that it's threatening the balance of power in your game because they're starting to really start overwhelm your characters, and they're going to start taking over. So you have to kind of match it. So this arms race is really real in terms of what players are allowed to have as characters and the XP situation. Like when we left, we had made a decree like a couple months before that as long as you're active in the game and you play once a month and at least do some stuff online in downtimes, we'll give you your full 8 XP.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it per session. We're just going to grant you that after your first game.
Right.
And once we did that, we literally watched dominoes as every other game in the area started doing the same thing because they didn't want to have their players miss out. And it just became a bookkeeping nightmare because if you have a player who's active in one of your games and you're trying to track their their travel XP and like going to other games, it was just easier bookkeeping for us to go auto 8 done.
So here's a question: was there any thought to just continuing to run the game without being part of the org?
We could.
Why?
So first off, there are no available. What's that?
Count as like property once you become.
No. Even that the plots that we ran, as soon as we turned it over to new staff, they conveniently lost all of our plots. And we're like, all right, whatever, it doesn't matter to us because we wrapped almost all of them before we left, anyways, as a condition of us stepping down. We want to leave them. We didn't want to leave players in the breach, so we kind of finished up what we could. It wasn't that. It's a couple things. The org has a like an ironclad grip of all the time slots, in for the weekend. So you have games on every Friday, every Saturday, and even on Sundays. Mm-hmm. There's really no time slot to get some of those players that you do want from the org. And then you also find that org players who play in the org and primarily play just org games prefer playing just org games because then they get XP on their characters as they play them in the org. And they don't have to start with a new character. So if you come into that environment, right, where every weekend is taken already by an org game, including the ones you used to run, and you try to continue the storyline of the game but no longer be a part of the org, mm-hmm. you run into an issue because as soon as you vacate your time slot, somebody's going to take over your game or your time slot, and then they're going to be like, yeah, well, we're playing our characters there. We have to make new characters for your game. And even if you said, well, you can bring your org characters in, which would be a holy hell of a hit.
Excuse me. Oh, shit.
You're not going to have players that will come because they'd rather play the org game.
So did you have a lot of you had a lot of people in your game that were like primarily org players that played all over the place?
So we got roughly on average 5 travelers from Wisconsin, 2 or 3 from Indiana, and then 2 or 3 from like down south. So roughly a third of our game right off the bat is all traveling players. Out of the 20 that remain that would be regular, about 10 were local. So that includes friends that we have all gamed with that are out here in the local, troop game scene. And then the other half of that were all local org players.
Right.
So if we separated, we'd only have at best 10 of those players carry over.
Right.
Now what we saw happen was some of those local players we brought into the org that originally wanted nothing to do with it went like Kool-Aid drinking like crazy. And it became this insane thing. We're like, oh, org all the time. Like, oh, okay, guys, hey. Hey, have your fun, but relax a little, okay?
Yeah.
The
big problem. Yeah. It's just the big problem that I had was going to like these. Like I went to one like kind of I guess you could call it convention style game for the org, and big issue that I had was there comes a certain point where people just don't give a shit what you're playing because there's like everybody is playing something crazy. Like everybody's playing some bizarre bloodline or has some ridiculous random discipline. And it's just like, if you play something normal, you're like, good luck. You're not, no one's going to look at you and go, oh, wow, that guy's intimidating. Everybody's like, fuck you. I don't care. And to me, it's very game breaking.
I noticed that once my my Asimite Vizier got min-hit Doom, people treated me very differently. When I was just Fleetness, Astral Projection, nobody gave a crap. But once I got min-hit Doom, it was like, that guy can generate willpower like crazy with a single hit. So let's not even touch that. And it was weird. Like, I was a 300-point character, you know, nothing too huge. I didn't have Aegis. I had Fleetness. I had Astral Projection, and then I bought up to like Vanish. You know, everything else was just pretty standard. But once I got that specialty discipline, where I converted my Quietus into min-hit Doom, the Vizier Quietus from V20, people were like, well, "Yep, nope, far away from that guy. He can fuck us up." And it's funny because you, as a character, Alexander was a very approachable Asimite. I would talk to anybody, you know, especially as a loyalist. I was there kind of like trying to convince people to come back, but subtly, you know. So he's a very friendly, approachable guy. But once I got that, people stopped talking to me. Like, all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, no, don't talk. I'm like, what? Did you think you were just gonna kill me before? Like, the hell. So it's interesting. But I want to address something you said a few minutes back about resetting every couple of years.
Yeah.
I've seen the bad that can make. I played MES for about 6 months, right? Me and a whole like 10 of our friends went and started playing the MES game in Chicago when they started their Chronicle over again. We all came in playing Tremere. And it was pretty awesome. But what I started seeing as time progressed in that Chronicle, people would come to me and go, so what's your final build going to be? And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, what's you know how much XP you're getting every month. What's your final build going to be by the end of the Chronicle? Because they do 2-year Chronicle spans. Every 2 years, they wipe the streak clean and refresh it. And so people literally sit down before the Chronicle even starts and plan out every single XP they're going to spend for the most optimal build by the end of the Chronicle. And literally a month before the Chronicle ends, all hell breaks loose and people just start murdering each other because now their optimal build, you know, and they're going to start be able to slaughter people with impunity. So
that's ridiculous.
That creates its own kind of issue because then it becomes, how can I Voltron the best disciplines in the fastest time before the Chronicle resets itself?
I had not thought of that.
Yeah, it was horrific to watch.
So what you're saying is that the ultimate solution is random Gehenna.
Yes. Well, in all honesty, yeah, because I would say, as a storyteller, especially as an administrator to a game or series of games, you get your fingers on the pulse of how things are going. And when stuff starts getting out of hand, when you're seeing characters just walk in and rewrite genre because nobody can stop them because they're so powerful, it might be time to start considering that reset button.
Yeah.
Because what you'll find out, and you mentioned this, and it's super true, when a new player walks in, especially a new player, like somebody who's never played World of Darkness before, never LARP before, doesn't know this genre, comes in and sees like somebody throwing around 34 traits on ties, 40 traits on ties, and with bomb ties and like astral projection attacks and crazy wit spiritual guardians that are attacking. And they're like, I got 8 traits and physical, and I got might.
Right.
Maybe one day I'll survive to get the bomb, but how can I ever, you know, this guy can look at me and crush me. And yes, it's part of Vampire that the elders are going to be super powerful, and you know, you got to tiptoe around them and play politics. But to keep that meta, the point is those players who are that big shouldn't be throwing their shit around. They should be playing politics.
Yeah,
but they're not.
Right. That's a good point, because when you open up any of the Vampire books, you open up any of the tabletop books, the Dark Ages books, the modern day books, if you read anything about elders and the super powerful and their paranoia, they're not walking around just throwing powers. Like, that's the province of the young. That's something that I think
makes you a target.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
It certainly does make you a target. To your point, when you said, like, you know, a new player can come in, see that and be like, this is crazy. There is that where they might go, I'm just not going to play this game because it's crazy. I'm never going to get to that level. Or there's another thing that happens where they get that twisted upbringing and they think that's how the game is supposed to be played. And then that's how they play it going forward. And then people like that, they learn the sort of improper way and the improper themes and feel of the game, and then they defend it to the end of their days.
Oh yeah.
Where they're like, no, this is the right way. And it's like, we've been reading the same books and getting a different opinion out of them.
Yeah. Like I made I had to get approval for a Tremere Anarch, like 100% Anarch Tremere from the org council. And I got it. And when I started talking about what I was going to put in this character, like Path of Blood's Curse and, Blood, just Path of Blood was my primary, obviously. And people are like, why are you going with Blood's Curse? Like, you're never going to win against elders on traits. So why would you buy them? Like, because it fits. Like, I'm a nervous as hell neonate in a sea of elders in Chicago and Milwaukee. This is something that can possibly give me an edge. So I'm going to invest my points into that to try to, for characters like own peace of mind.
Right.
If you come for me, I'll blunt your fangs, or I'll make you, no longer be able to assist on blood. You'll eat ashes or whatever. And then I uncovered Father's Vengeance. And I was like, I'm in a heyday. And people are like, Father's Vengeance sucks. I'm like, yeah, but thematically for my character, this is the best thing ever. Because that mindset at its very base is that I have to build for every contingency and be a powerful, like, mechanical character has infected so much of a lot of that social structure that it's sad. It's no longer the same game you're playing.
Yeah.
It's not about personal horror anymore. It's about how many points can I cram into this character.
Right. It becomes, ironically, as Nate said the other night, and we all know that World of Darkness is just superpowers in the dark. It's what it becomes.
Right.
And it's funny because these are the same people in this org, and I'm not trying to hate on ODBN. There's some really cool players and some really fun times I've had in ODBN, but a lot of the players will really talk down about stuff like, say, New World of Darkness, right? Oh, that's such a horrible written setting. I would never want to play there. It's one of my favorites. That's good. A topic for a different story. But then you watch them go around and behave like vampires and werewolves in New WoD. They're making back alley deals. They're friends with each other behind the scenes. There's no real conflict going on. It's on the smaller neonate level, like the new characters. But all the old experienced characters, when we go to a mixed game, you have princes and archons and Sabbat bishops sitting next to Guru Arun and Theurges and alphas of packs. And it's like, what's going on? Oh, we're talking what to do about this other thing. I'm like, what other thing? We want to get a relic. Okay. Why are you all working together? Well, why wouldn't we? Because this isn't New WoD. You don't do that.
Right.
So if you tell them, like, guys, you should reset your org and just play New World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness now, because that's what you want to play. They go, oh my God, how do you say that? I'm like, because I'm watching you play, and you're playing Chronicles of Darkness.
Right. One of the only when I went, remember when let me step back. Jeff, you went to that one Obi-Wan game at what's it called? Midwinter with me.
Yeah, sure did.
And if you remember, the weird thing about that game was it was everybody, all the vampires, all sects, all together in one large open space. And I was like, why is there a bishop over there and a prince over there and a baron over there? And
they're all just chilling.
Why won't they all go fuck themselves? Like they're all just hanging out at the bar, just tipping back a shot. And I'm like, no, because
part of it was probably because one, they were there for obviously the story, so they're gonna go and be like, I don't give a fuck who I'm sitting by. I want to kill this badass demon or whatever they're gonna throw at us on
in Africa, the side plot.
Yeah. The other thing is, nobody really knows at that point. And think about an organization like that. I don't know how many points your character has. I got 1,000 or 1,200 or something.
Right.
You might have 1,400. I don't want to lose my character.
They know.
Let's just work together and kill the demon.
No, they know.
They do know.
Like, people talk. People talk. I could drop a couple of names of characters right now, and org watchers or people who would like watch or listen to this will immediately know who I'm talking about and roughly how big they are, because people get known. Like, you've had that character for how many years have I watched that character play? Let's do the math. They get 8 XP a month, 12 months. So, like, you get a good idea of where people stand. It's when the only time it's different is if, like, say I have a 1,200 point character in the background, and I come to Midwinter, this major gathering of all these kindred, and I'm playing somebody that nobody's met before. That's when it's like, that's probably that character with an alternate identity or something's, cover up who they really are. That's really the only time there's uncertainty. or if there's brand new players
or something.
Yeah. So that does happen, but not because nobody knows how many points you are. It's just they're not sure if you're playing your main character or one of your side dishes.
It's fair enough. Either way, it's like you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know if it's necessarily that you're not doing it right. If you're having fun, great. But the game that I learned, the game that I've spent so much time playing, that's not the game. It's not the same game.
What we can say is that
when you alter it like that, it becomes a different game entirely.
Right. What we can say is that it's not meta. That's not following the plot of the canon. I mean, yeah, you make your own thing. Like, I've had to begrudgingly start to accept people's own twists on the meta of the World of Darkness, even though it like pains my soul a lot of the time. Because as the time we've grown gaming together back in the day, I got this really like hardcore like, here's how the World of Darkness works, here's how it functions, here's how politics work. Yes, we can play around that and have a little like a softer consequence edge, but it's still the same thing we're playing. And if you go out of genre, I'm gonna slap you back into genre. But then I go to some of the other games. I'm like, what is your genre? But because why is there a mage mated to a guru in the heart of the Cairn? And what's doing shit about this mage being here?
Right.
The Cairn Raider in your midst, nobody cares. And so you have to kind of turn a blind eye to a lot of this shit when you're playing these types of games. And what I can say, though, to Biggie Bank off of Jeff, is that it's uncomfortable when you're used to it being one way. You're not in your comfort zone anymore.
Yeah, I've had to, especially in the last 4 or 5 years, doing podcasts about Vampire and meeting, so many new people that play it. I've had to just go, okay, your way is not the only way. That's fine. But I'm always like,
that's true.
Did you read the books that I read? Yeah. In my head, I'm always like, God, that's cool, but that doesn't make any damn sense. So,
right.
I have definitely been there. I was pulled into Consult on a friend's Technocracy game. And within the first day, I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, for real, what are you playing? Because this is not Technocracy. Oh, well, they did this and that. And I'm like, all right, that's room 101. They're done. Like, they're getting reprocessed, man. Well, no, because I'm like, there's no. They're working for the Technocracy proper. They're a splinter cell of them. But there are all these weird creature types, and they're going rogue. They're reprocessed. They don't get to pass go another time. They go directly to recycling. Like that's how this works. The union's not going to sink that type of money and productivity into them if they're rogue. They're going to take care of them and try with the next option. And so I got so frustrated, I had to leave. I was like, I can't even anymore, man. Like your players are so far off a field. I don't understand where they're coming from with their vision of the World of Darkness. And after I left that game, I wasn't playing it. I was just kind of like there watching and giving my unabashed and advice, at the end of it. I had to sit down and go, why did I get so upset about that? And I found out that it took everything that I loved about that genre and just left it dying, bleeding to death in the street. And I think that we can all be passionate about how we like to play our game, but then I had a moment where I'm like, you know what, dude, I apologized to my friend. Like, listen, I'm not trying to say you're running a bad game. It's not the game I would have run. And I have to acknowledge that for your players, this was a lot of fun for them. So clearly you weren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
It's just, I have my own opinions about what I would have run in your stead.
Right.
Right.
And that was really hard to come to.
It's hard because with game, especially like World of Darkness, and just that type of dark kind of gothic horror game in general, there's no right or wrong way to run it, but there's most definitely guidelines. And when you start erasing those lines and kind of going out and doing where the wonky shit comes in, that's when you sit there and got to go, is this the game for me?
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up anybody else's fun, but I'm not having fun anymore. We're not following the guidelines that I acknowledge in my head from the same books that I've read. So it comes into that personal, I got to step back as opposed to ruining people's fun or anything.
Yeah, at what point do you decide we're no longer playing World of Darkness? We're playing our own homebrew thing.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
There's been tons of LARPs that I've gone to, back in the day where, first game in, I was like, I don't understand what the hell's happening here. Like this world doesn't make sense to me, but I just had to go, okay, do I want to continue to just participate in this social game, or is it so unnerving to me that I can just go home. And, there's been occasions where I was like, fuck this game. Like, this game doesn't make any sense.
For sure.
Nothing about it is actually World of Darkness, so I'm going to go. And then
why you gotta talk shit about my mage game like that, man?
No, your mage game was awesome in that regard. I'm talking about specific
and that's big
games.
Coming from him because Nate don't like mage.
Right? No, but I had a great time. That's the truth of it. It's not even that I don't like mage; it's that I don't know mage enough to like it. Like I don't know enough about the world to formulate a positive opinion about it. I've got mage books, so I mean that should say something. They're on my shelf, and I want to play mage, but I've never learned it to the degree that I've learned Vampire the Masquerade, and I think that's the point. I could go to a mage game, and you could have ran the most unrealistic, wonky ass mage game, and I would never know because I don't have any education. But if I went to your vampire game and you were like, well, the Sabat and the Camarilla are going to meet on Elysium, and they're going to play hopscotch. I'd be like, wait, what? And then they're going to have a ninja fight. Like, all right, cool. This is ridiculous. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Without a ninja fight.
Yeah, you can't go to a LARP without a ninja fight. You got to have a ninja fight.
We call those Assamites, man. Get it right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Toreador sword fighter with the trench coat and
oh man. Done some crazy shit with Toreador.
And the mortal hunter ghoul with 5 levels of what's that shit called?
Where you can't see him.
Well, yeah, we got the true faith.
Oh, arcane.
Yeah, but then you also have 5 levels of arcane. So if you walk near me, you don't know that I'm there, but you start burning.
Yeah, and you don't know why.
That shit I've encountered in a game. That like those are things I've gone to games and been like, so there's nobody there. I can't see him. But if I step over there, I light on fire. Yeah. But I don't get a challenge for that? No, you don't.
Like, why would you ask? Of course. I mean, you should know that, obviously.
Yeah. He's got 5 points of true faith that causes instant vampire fire. And you can see him, but you just forget him immediately. You don't know he's there. Oh, okay.
That's not really how that works, but all right.
It's like
so here's my sheet.
Right
I'm gonna go now. Yeah. Thanks. That was a great game.
Yeah, I've had some weird ones with that.
Yeah. I'm hoping that after COVID, I'm actually looking forward to getting out and interacting with people socially. So I'm looking forward to getting back into like the LARP community to some degree. Just to get my misery and suffering out of the way.
Yeah, being all the way out in Arizona now, the closest games I think are in like Phoenix. But I don't have any.
There's an Anarch game in Phoenix.
I would go if I had my friends here and everybody was like, "Fuck it, we're gonna go LARP." I'd be like, "All right, fuck it, let's go have a good time." But I'm not going to go out of my way to do that when we can have much more fulfilling and entertaining tabletop games over Discord.
I would probably be more likely to go to a LARP if I lived in a place where I didn't have any friends, just so I could have some like actual social interaction. Because even if you're not going to find all the coolest people at a LARP, you might find 1 or 2 who at least like share a similar interest to you. But yeah, I agree with you. Like it's cool to be able to just play online with people now. And it's not like, this is not a big deal. Like we just sit here, throw on some cameras, record a podcast. We do the same thing with a game. In fact, we are doing that regularly. So
multiple days a week.
Yeah, my weekends are booked now.
Yes, they are. And some Mondays.
How did I end up running all of them? What the fuck did that happen?
Because, like you said earlier in the podcast, you enjoy storytelling more than being a player.
I do, but you're on the hook for tonight, though.
I am.
So there's that.
Yeah, I enjoy being a storyteller. I just haven't. I really haven't recovered from my previous situation where I'm like, I'm ready to run a game again.
That's how I'm viewing Vampire right now, because when I started doing Chicago by Night on my Discord server, it was going well for like the first session or 2 because people were involved, but then like people stopped. It just became a clusterfuck, and I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of colliding factors here that made this happen. One of which is that we've all been, playing Vampire for 20 years. So let's maybe take a break. And I think that's where I am right now. But then I went and read the Sabat thing I wrote for V5, and I'm like, oh my God, this was so much fun to write. Like, I would love to play with this. But as a player, but that leaves me screwed because nobody will run it. So,
well, plus there's like some post. I will get into that. I'll just say we've all ran the same gauntlet, and it may leave a bad taste in some people's mouths over time, especially with Vampire.
Which is why it was so, I think, entertaining for some of us when we started running Guardians of the Galaxy, and then our Marvel Daredevil and Punisher thing we did just the other day. It was so different from anything near the World of Darkness. It was that superhero type, action that was just fun and comical.
Yeah.
And it was such a weird vibe to come from World of Darkness to something like that, which is why I think it kind of stood out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. After playing World of Darkness so long, it's really fun to start diving into games that we really haven't messed with very much, but that we all clearly showed passion for, like the L5R or coming up soon, Cthulhu Tech. Even stuff like D&D and Pathfinder, which we've all played before. I'm like jazzed to play them again if we ever decide to run them. I just needed a break from World of Darkness, and I had one for about a year. And after seeing your character creation, and it like reminded me that, oh man, I used to have a lot of fun playing this game. And then character concept started flowing, and I'm like, fuck, someone needs to run a World of Darkness game soon.
One, I enjoyed the walk through the character, but what got me was today when I sat down and watched the history of the World of Darkness. I'm like, hey, it's Gary, Indiana. We can't stop here. This is vampire country. Like, what? Gary, oh my God, Gary, Indiana. And it's funny because that makes sense. Like, if you think about how run down and like destitute they wanted the World of Darkness to be, like, it's Gary, Indiana. And now I see it. I didn't know it, but now the connection is clear in my head.
Yeah. Well, you drive into Chicago from Indiana like at night, and there's some parts of Chicago where you're like, oh, nothing lives there but bad shit. Like, there's nothing good going on there.
Especially if you go over the Skyway, some of the areas you look down from the Skyway, and I'm like, I'm glad I'm going over that.
Yeah, that's the way we drive. If we go to Indianapolis or somewhere in Indiana. We live in Chicago now, so we drive that way to get back. And it's like, oh, this is creepy.
Yeah, definitely.
What is that boat doing there? I don't know. Is it even in the water? I have no idea. Well, all right, guys. It's been a great podcast. I thank you very much for jumping on. And I don't want to keep you too much.
We're over already? All right, fair enough.
No, well, it's almost 7. Yeah.
It seems like we just started. So
yeah. No, we could go 2 more hours, but I've really got to pee and I'm hungry. So
all right, man. Hey, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having us on, Nate.
Would you mind? Do you know the web address of your Twitch? Do you know the web address of your YouTube?
Yes. So my Twitch is just twitch.tv/ThugCTC. And that's all that matters right now, I guess, because I'm not utilizing my YouTube really.
Yeah, my Twitch is twitch.tv/Qualthis, which is QUALTHIS. I'm on YouTube as just Storyteller Qualthis, so that's just put Storyteller in front of that and do a search, you'll find me.
Cool.
We're only about 6. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Actually, that's really, really useful. We're only about 6 episodes in right now, so we've just started things out, but we're always open to suggestions and starting to talk about stuff. I think the next Storyteller Q&A we're going to do, in live gameplays. The next Storyteller interview we're going to do, we're actually going to talk about playing Sabat and running Sabat, so that should be fun. And I still have to talk to you about doing one, so we'll get that at some point.
Yeah, let me know whenever you want me to come on and lend my my knowledge. I would be happy to do that.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys very much. And go check out their stuff.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the 2D10 podcast. If you liked what you heard, check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Check out our YouTube channel, TWO_DTEN.
Don't forget to spell it, you dumb.
If you want to support us more, go to our website, utilitymuffinlabs.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next episode. Don't judge me.